Prepare to be amazed as two men, legally classified as vintage, compete to recall pop culture nonsense from a time when parents smoked in grocery stores and Ronald McDonald roamed free, judged and scored by artificial intelligence. Chris and Jeff sift through the glorious wreckage of a gleefully neglected childhood, hoping to find meaning. Nice pull, because if we don't remember this crap, you know damn well someone's gonna try and reboot it and make it way worse. Hey, everybody. Chris and I were just laughing about the fact that every time we record on this software that allows Chris to be at his house and me to be at my house, right, with the interweb, it does this very dramatic countdown. 5, 4, 3, like you're almost on air, right? Like we've seen all of those movies or TV shows where someone's about to go live on air, Chris. And what do they always do on the countdown? 5, 4, 3, and then the last one they go, right? And because the show is edited, I mean, obviously there's times when Chris and I have to get up, use the restroom, cough something up. I don't know what we're doing, right? We're old. I have no idea. But we don't think you need to see all that stuff, right? So it is edited. It is edited, and but it doesn't mean that I don't feel pressure every time that countdown happens. I'm like, oh my god, I better really know what I'm talking about. Shit, this is live.
Because there are live versions of this, and it's called radio. Okay, it's like this is not, hey, they guys should do podcast live. It's like, you mean like radio?
And let's be honest, even radio is usually pre-recorded and
or 7-second delay.
7-second delay. Yeah. So anyway, well, again, welcome to episode 69, which should be the sexy episode. This was going to be the sexy episode, guys, for obvious juvenile, stupid reasons. But instead, we have a little bit of a different topic that we really think is overdue. So we're going to get into that in a second. And yes, I am obsessed with mentioning that we are almost at episode 70. Chris and I are in a chat group with a bunch of friends of ours from high school that we still keep in touch with. And they have said to us repeatedly, Jeff, Chris, mostly Jeff, please don't keep mentioning what episode it is. Nobody cares, number one. And it's really just kind of lame and amateurish and unprofessional. Nobody does that. To which I say, I don't care. I'm obsessed. I for some reason, 70 is important to me. I don't know why. Do any of us know why as we get older, things become important? Help me out, Chris. Does it matter, really?
Does it matter? Well, man, I'm not quite sure. That's a loaded question. Yes and no. I mean, I think it is kind of interesting. I think because it just goes back to when we started doing this. But particularly our one particular friend who shall remain, who out of that group, there's one who's a little bit more vociferous about the whole thing. But it's just a
vociferous.
thing. Vociferous. Ooh.
Vociferous. I said luciferous.
So absolutely.
What is luciferous? Is that like Satan-like? I
Exactly.
don't know what did I think you said?
There's some
sorry,
sort of,
Chris. Continue.
Yes.
I apologize. Yeah.
So no, it's just a fun thing, and we're rolling. So if you don't want to hear that part, just join the show. A minute in progress. Although it's not actually in progress, you fast forward because it's recorded. But I don't know. It means. Here's the thing: the numbers mean everything, and they mean nothing simultaneously. How's that? Because I mean, it's not like we're trying to hit a specific number. It's not like we're trying to set a record. It's not like we're, like I said, there's a prize when you get to a number. It's just a thing. And but episode 69, here we are. What are we talking about? Or actually, no, since 69, we have to look back at episode 68 briefly. So
very briefly, yes. As you know, we need to look back at the previous episode because AI, artificial intelligence, has had a chance to listen to the entire transcript, and it has decided which of us got the most polls. right? The most obscure references, and it graded us and scored it just like it always does. And again, speaking of stuff that probably shouldn't matter but does, this does matter to us. Who is winning? Not just episode by episode, but the long game. And I will say that right now, Chris is ahead by I think 3 or 4 episodes in terms of winning on the most
Mhm.
obscure or the most uh, voluminous amount, largest
Ooh.
amount of polls. I don't
Ooh.
know. You said vociferous. I can say
I said
voluminous, whatever.
vociferous. Okay.
Oh, I still can't get that word right. What?
Jesus, man.
Vociferous, not luciferous, not vociferous. Okay, I don't know. Anyway, let's take a look back really quick and open up the liquor cabinet, and we're going to see
Mhm.
what happened here on episode 68. Now, Chris, a very quick look at this is you got a couple of really great polls, right? One of them, we were talking mostly about drive-in movie theaters. We also
Mhm.
talked a little bit about regular movie theaters back in the day, and we really dug pretty deep. But Chris was able to remember that there used to be a thing called a crying room, right?
Mhm.
Or a smoking room
Yes.
where people could take their baby and allegedly smoke while you're there with your baby. I don't
Hopefully, there
know
were
if it
different
was
rooms.
okay. They might have been different rooms. I say they
There were
probably weren't.
smoking baby
You,
rooms.
you
Yeah.
say that they, well, if your baby's smoking, that's probably a different
Right.
situation.
Baby
But
Herman. Yeah, I guess,
yeah,
I don't know.
but Chris, that got you a huge amount of points. You also took it a step further, and it's a more recent poll, but you said, hey, movie trailers, please stop reminding me that I'm in a movie theater right now during the previews and
Mhm.
explaining to me the movie theater experience. You already won. I'm here. And then you mentioned
I
Nicole
paid.
Kidman having that big ad campaign where she would
Yeah.
constantly tell
Uh,
people about the movie experience. That was a good poll. It may not be a
uh,
1970s or 60s or
uh-huh.
80s poll, but AI loved that a lot. So Chris, I'm just going to say that my big poll was really the story that I told. And sometimes AI doesn't care that I didn't remember something
Mhm.
about the name of an actor or a TV show or something. Sometimes it's just the stories that Chris and I share from back then. And I shared the story of the guy who frankly pissed me off because he cut in front of the line. And maybe I had a soda in my hand and maybe I was sitting behind him and it might have spilled and it might have hit him on the shoulder and he might have got up and started crying like a child. And Chris, I now realize I said I don't know where that guy disappeared to after I spilled my drink on him. Now I know. It was the crying room. That's where he went. He went to the crying room. That's why his girlfriend couldn't find him. She should have
Mhm.
looked there.
Right.
Anyway, I'm still not proud of that. That was not the way to do things. But Chris, let's take a look at the final score.
Uh-huh.
AI, let's count it up. Tell us who won. I knew it was going to be close. I did know it was going
Uh-huh.
to be close, Chris. That was one of those episodes where we talked a lot about the experience back then of the drive-ins and the
Mhm.
movie theaters. There weren't a ton of super deep references, but dude, I gotta
Right.
say, AI got it right that time. I
Right.
think you, with the crying room and the smoking room, you definitely pulled out ahead
Yes.
there.
Yes.
Chris wins the game, and that's going to make
Yes.
it so much easier for me because it's a very different Chris when he's won. He's just as happy and chipper
That's right.
as Daffy Duck would say. He's
Mm.
brown as a nut and fit as a lass, whatever
Ooh.
that means. Try to decipher that someday. No one knows what that means.
I'm not even gonna try. But yes, thank you. I'd like to thank everyone who helped make this moment possible. Um, basically the anecdotes, because like you said, it was an anecdote-heavy episode as opposed to a poll-heavy episode. But, yeah, let's move on and maybe I don't know, Jeff, you got some ground to make up. So
I
let's
do.
just
I
go
do.
see.
I do. I mean, I was pretty proud of myself for catching up a couple episodes
Mhm,
ago, but by gosh,
mhm,
it's okay. The battle was lost. The war for absolutely no relevance or prizes continues.
mhm. Right.
Cool. Chris, so again, episode 69, I was thinking this would be kind of the sexy after hours episode, but no, 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 of course not. So much has happened
It's the
in the
opposite.
world of what's that?
It's actually the opposite.
This is the
Like
polar opposite, unless you're really into funerals and
well,
somehow that turns you on.
that's a whole different episode.
That's
Yeah.
a whole different
The
episode.
kink
Yeah.
episode, and I don't think we're there yet.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. That's right. I think even The Love Boat might have had one or two
Mm-mm.
references to, kinky, behavior.
Uh,
I'll have to go scour through there. Guys, Chris and I have noticed, we've all noticed, especially if you're in this age range, that we have lost not 1, 2, 3, or 4, but a whole bunch of celebrities who may not be huge celebrities in the younger generation's mind, but certainly these are people from the nice pole world, right? People that were popular in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, etc. So, Chris, one of them would be music legend, and of course, I think everyone knows who I'm about to say, which is Ozzy Osbourne.
mhm,
And I'm going to say my first impression here, Chris, is when I was a kid, I did not relate to that music at all. Anything that
mhm,
was considered metal or
mhm,
kind of like go Satan, even though we all know that's silly, right? I just
mhm.
wasn't into it. I was the, kid with the, bleached hair and the new wave
And the parachute
and,
pants.
all the kooky new wave bands. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, Parachute Pants, we had that episode. So, I was detached from Ozzy Osbourne, but before I kinda get into how I felt about him later, can you kinda give me your impressions on good old Ozzy Osbourne?
I mean, very similar to yours, as far as who he was at the time when he was big, when he was like, and again, if you had to follow this train from, he was in Black Sabbath first, and it's just like, yeah, neither you or I were like, okay, aware of Black Sabbath, not big Black Sabbath fans. Then he goes off, think he gets fired. But then Crazy Train and so he has like and everybody knew Crazy Train. No matter what you were listening to in that time period, we'd all heard that song. And then that song became sort of a staple at like arenas, they play at sporting events and stuff like that. But again, I was pretty much like you. Okay, yeah, Ozzy Osbourne, kind of this adult British guy mumbling around, don't really knew much about, the legends, didn't really know a lot, but it was, hey, he, allegedly bit the head off of a bat or something like that.
Yeah.
But but then he basically reinvented himself by the time we were young adults when and really when reality TV kind of blew up, right? And the Osbournes and they created this reality show which was completely it was staged to the point did you even know that they had like two kids that were in the show? They had a third kid that actually lived there that basically was like, yeah, I'm not doing this. And so she's just not in the show, just no references, she's none of the shots, edited out if she's in the background, so it's just like, I mean, props to that kid for kinda saying, "Yeah, I just wanna," but Ozzy Osbourne and then his wife and his 2 kids who were on they became like celebrities based
Yeah.
on being, again, sort of that first, like, you're whoop, hit the mic. You're, adjacent. You're Ozzy Osbourne adjacent, like, we love to use that word, and they became big stars. So
And
that is really, when I think of Ozzy Osbourne now, that's really my freshest memory. And then he's
yeah.
always in that category of like Ozzy Osbourne died. Shit, Ozzy Osbourne's still alive? It's that sort of thing. Like he made it to 77, which is remarkable considering the life that he led. So that's what I think about when you mention somebody like Ozzy Osbourne.
100%. The other daughter was basically Richie Cunningham's older brother, Chuck,
Yep.
right? Except they never even mentioned her, right? But
No,
he suddenly just didn't exist, and she
just
just
bad.
didn't exist. Yeah. So, interesting. When I think about Ozzy Osbourne, of course, I remember all that stuff, and I remember, riding the bus, as we've talked about, to get to the beach, which we did quite
Hmm.
often before we had driver's licenses, and there was a big discussion going on right around the time that that happened, where he allegedly bit the head off a bat, right? And back
Hmm.
then, guys, without the internet, it just became the stuff of legend. And as the
Hmm.
story grew and
Urban
word of
legend.
mouth, and
Absolutely.
somebody was comparing it to an Alice Cooper concert, and you could
Hmm.
tell they were just making shit up, or this rumor about Alice Cooper had gotten so out of control. It was okay.
Hmm.
First, he took a bunch of chicks, little baby chicks that had just hatched, and he smashed them with a baseball bat. I'm like,
Hmm.
even as a kid back then, you're like, dude, sorry, man. That's just not tracking. I'm
Right.
sorry, but I don't know much in my young life, but I'm pretty sure he
Hmm.
didn't do that, right? And then he would have a bunch of people spit into a bag, and then he would drink it in front of everybody. And you can
Right.
tell as each one of these stories is being told, you can just kind of see in your mind some sleepover where kids were just making shit up and
Mhm.
just adding to the story. So
Right.
by the time it came out, you know, it was just like a battle between what's worse, biting the head off a bat or murdering, live, chickens on stage. But later in life, when I actually started to listen to the lyrics of the stuff that he was doing, and of course, later in life, you go if you're, relatively, uh, I don't know, I shouldn't say the next thing I'm going to say, but let's just say a lot of us in life, we move past the idea that there's an actual Satan and a
Mhm.
devil and a
Right.
hell. And you start to
Mhm.
realize, oh, this was a marketing gimmick. Oh, it's tongue in cheek. Oh, I get
Uh-huh.
it. This is pretty funny. And then you
Mhm.
start to listen to what he's saying and what he said, and you're like, "Oh my god." In fact, if you listen to the actual lyrics of Crazy Train, it's
Mhm.
really uplifting. It's an amazing song. It's incredible. It's all about humanity rising up above, just anger and everyone just loving each other. It's very Beatlesque, but that escaped me back in the day, right? Another person who recently passed away, and I think this one kind of hits different for us, Chris, is Malcolm Jamal Warner.
Mhm.
And for me, of course, this is Cleo Huxtable on the Cosby
Theo.
Show. I think the my God, how many deductions do I get? What's Cleo? Cleo sounds like a fortune teller. Was Cleo Huxtable like a one
Cleo
eight
was that
hundred guess your fortune?
yes,
Cleo
Cleo was no
Huxtable.
well, 976, I think was the Cleo lady, but yeah, you could go on. Yes,
Nice.
but
That's right. Yeah.
yeah.
So sorry, Chris. Thank you. Thank God you're here. Can you please just stay with me at all times?
Yes. Sure.
Theo Huxtable was our age mostly. I think he's a little
Mhm.
younger than us, but I mean,
Few
this is
years.
one of those things where you relate to him on a personal level, even though it's a fictional character. We all get that, but he was our buddy. We grew up with that guy. You feel like you know him on a personal level, even though we don't. So when something so tragic happens, and he was also one of those guys that stayed out of the news, was just for
Mhm.
all intents and purposes, this was just a great father and a wonderful person. You would see him occasionally in other TV shows and stuff, and it's like, oh man, I forgot how good this guy is. So that kind of hurt, man. That one stung. What are your
Well, that
thoughts on
would
our buddy
well
Theo?
well, I have one thought. Well, my initial thought, and this is not to be too glib about it, was, yeah, when you see the headline come across, and you're right, he's a few years younger than us, but definitely in our generation, because anybody from the Cosby Show, which hit big in the '80s, um, talked about his accidental drowning, and again, the first thought in me was like going, "Does anybody drown on purpose?" Okay, I really again, the editor in me really wanted to rewrite that headline because he accidentally drowned. Of course he did. Nobody, anyway, I digress.
Yeah, good
Yeah,
point. I
just
didn't even think about that. Yeah, that's
everything
funny.
about it. Yeah, you say tragic for somebody. This wasn't a substance abuse. That wasn't a guy driving, 130 and his, Lamborghini and Raptor. This was something sad. A guy that, yes, stayed out of the headlines, that seemed to be, did some other shows and was always around. And just, you're right. Just that sort of a guy's like, oh, yeah, you just remember. I wouldn't say necessarily remember him fondly because it wasn't like that big, but just remember it's like, oh, yeah, seems like a good enough guy, not one of these mind numbing celebrities that you're sick of over time. And so, yeah. And I think now it's just like, man, when you look back and, that whole show, which basically was, from the time it launched and just blew up and became just this phenomenon, and for years and years, and then there was this dark undercurrent that nobody really had under, and again, Malcolm Jamal Warner and the rest of the guys, nobody had anything to do with that, and I think that's even just as big as a tragedy because I think that show meant so much to so many people, and that I think it did a lot of positive things, and then you're just like, what the hell, man? Are you kidding me? You know what I mean? It's like and to all the people and also the people that were victimized, all the women and everything else behind about it for decades. And that all this stuff going on. So there was so many deep, dark, bad things under something that and that's a tragedy in itself and touched again all these women and all these other people. And but then to think about something like this when that's what unfortunately someone like Malcolm Jamal Warner, and this again, these are how these obituaries go. And I'll talk about, he was best known and came to, became famous with a part on the Cosby Show, blah blah blah, and then that inevitable paragraph that follows talks about unfortunately, in
Yeah.
recent years, all these so it's just like, man, a big stain, which again, like I said, started decades ago, and there was a lot of victims and really shouldn't, like I said, it's not to undermine what that was all about, but man, it's just like just just really bad things all around, and that's again, that was a sad one to see when somebody in their 50s like that, passes away in an accident. So,
And just in case you join the podcast a little bit, further into it, and you don't watch it from the beginning, we're talking about Bill Cosby. Just so you know. All right. Now Chris is really dancing around it and trying to be,
you're right, you're
very,
right.
very, but this is by no means has anything to do with any of the cast of the Cosby Show. We're talking about
Correct.
the giant, horrible,
Yes.
who just destroyed everyone's impression of
Well
him. And again, we don't typically get into these topics very deeply, but he's
mhm,
just one of those guys that it burns me every day that that guy found a loophole and somehow got out of prison. It's just,
mhm.
to me, that is hard to believe. But anyway,
Well, we
yeah,
probably would've made a lot more. I mean, let's face it, we probably would have made a lot of Fat Albert references on this show,
we
but
would
we've
have.
kinda stayed away, but that again, it's the
Yeah,
same thing. It's like, man, when we were kids and we loved all and every Saturday and the hey and all that stuff, and so we grew up with that, you know what I mean? And then
yeah,
to find out that there were all the God, what was happening in Fat when they were doing that? Hopefully not all, but awful. So
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes, so thanks for that clarification,
Well,
Jeff.
I just in case somebody came in late and they're like, "What is he talking about?" So another person that was a big figure in our youth was Hulk Hogan, right? From
Mhm.
the wrestling world. And I don't have anything to say about him. I never got into wrestling.
No.
It never interested me. I bet you if somebody had taken me to a wrestling match and I understood that it was more about being there and cheering somebody and everybody kind of realizing wink wink that it's fake, but you're really watching a soap opera, maybe I would have gotten into it. But yeah, he passed away. I'm not going to get into anything with him because on a personal level, not a
Mhm.
fan. And he's on the list with Scott Baio. So
Mm.
I can't go any further with my thoughts on him. It'll just get too dark. But Chris, did you have any uh, good memories of the World Wrestling Federation or Hulk Hogan?
Well, just I think when I first became aware of him was in Rocky 3 when they have, like, he become and they that's where most people, "Oh, he comes out and Rocky has this match with a wrestler," and it's played for laughs for the most part. And other than that, 1,000% knew him as sort of this cartoonish figure,
Yeah,
and yeah, wrestling never got into it because again, I always thought, yes, it's fake and people know it's fake. And I'll agree that these guys are really good. Like they're in great physical shape. And I think they're probably more stuntmen than act. It's like they do take these big falls, pratfalls and hitting each other with chairs and all that shit.
yeah.
And these guys, but it's fake. It's 100%. So I to this day, I don't get how it's included on, like, ESPN and stuff like that because this is not a sport. This is a predetermined outcome. There are scripts, there are characters, right? There's the good guy and the bad guy and all that shit. So it's just like, this is just another TV show.
People like the spectacle and the drama. The other person who died most recently, and this was really really sad. And this is a celebrity that you don't hear anything about since she kind of had her heyday back in, I would say, mostly the 80s. She certainly appeared in things and is a successful person, was very famously married to Burt Reynolds and a few other people. So, or I don't know about a few other people, but for sure him. But I'm talking, of course, Chris, about Lonnie Anderson, who was the famous secretary character on WKRP in Cincinnati.
Jennifer Marlowe.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I knew you'd come through, man. Thank you. And for a role that was meant to be the sex symbol, right? The kind
Mhm.
of Dolly Parton-esque, but she could have just played it as this very vapid,
Mhm.
stereotypical blonde with big boobs, and she didn't.
Right.
She was able, in my opinion, she was able to really elevate that role, and you saw that she was, like, really shrewd, and and
Mhm.
brought that through the character beyond the confines of the script. And that
Mhm.
was actually pretty cool. I thought that was pretty amazing acting, frankly.
Yeah, I remember reading that one time. I think that initially, and to your point that, yeah, the character was written, it's like, yeah, this is the sex symbol. This is the then she's the secretary to the big guy, right? The boss, Mr. Carlson. And it was written as the stereotypical, almost like, because you think about the time, it's like you had Suzanne Summers on Three's Company and that sort of thing, where they talked about Jiggle and all of that. You had Charlie's Angels. So yeah, so she gave them a reading that was just, no, she's smart. You can't you're gonna she's going to surprise you and people are gonna take her for granted. And so yeah, she was, because you had all these, remember these people that would show up on like Johnny Carson, like Carol Wayne or things like that. And they were these, again, they were basically famous for being bombshells and starlets.
Oh, sure,
And
sure.
so yeah, so props to her, you're right. And yeah, I think that was her legacy. I think she had a show. I wanna say that there was like a show that she had with Linda Carter at some point. Remember, it was like a private eye show. Yeah, you're looking stunned. Um, I'm sure Mark Fernandez will jump in and tell us what that was, but I'm pretty sure that that was, yeah, research, right? I know we could do research, but why do we wanna do research? So but you're right. And then
It's never helped us so far.
married to married to Burt Reynolds, kid with Burt
Yeah.
Reynolds, and
Okay.
TV movies, Love Boat, and again, you hit it when you said it's like Lonnie Anderson, never heard of Scandal, never got pulled over for drunk driving, never like, "Oh god, I'm sick of Lonnie Anderson, everywhere I go, there's Lonnie Anderson." None of that stuff. So, yeah, some of you remember kind of on,
If somebody had later in life told me that the entire time she was a CIA asset and like a super spy, I would completely believe you. Because even during the show, she always had that air of, I'm here in this office, but I've actually got a bunch of other things going on. And she was almost there politely just to go through the motions of it, but her character was always like, people, people. Yeah. Do your thing. But secretly, it's like, I want to know what she does when she gets back to her apartment. Is she calling, the headquarters of, the spy agency and then rappelling up the side? I mean, I'm just really curious. Like, what is her deal? Or does she work for the FBI? Is she a detective? Like, I don't know why, but I always thought there was so much more to that character.
I think there was a joke that she was the highest paid person at the station. Like, she even made more than Mr. Carlson made. So it was like, and they
Right.
never really, they just cut a couple lines and toss it off. They obviously didn't explore that. But she was so smart and so shrewd that she was the secretary to the station manager and she got paid more than anybody else.
Well, and I could
So,
see because she completely blew up back then as a major
mhm,
sex symbol. She for a little while there, I would say she achieved, Farrah Fawcett status,
mhm,
for a while, and
right,
everything was Lonnie Anderson. So yeah, I could see that. I mean, that's why
right,
people are tuning into the show, frankly.
right.
Okay, well, anyway, so yeah, very sad to hear that. What a seemingly wonderful person.
Mhm.
And so Chris, I would be remiss, right, if I
Ooh,
didn't mention at least some of the folks that maybe we missed, right? So, missed and not missed as in I feel bad, although you should feel bad, but missed as in, "Oh, I didn't know they died." That kinda missed, right? So and also, Chris, not missed like MIST, even though you
mhm.
might get a little misty
You might get
for
misty.
missing them.
Yeah.
I'll stop, I'll stop. I'm on a weird
Yeah,
tear here.
John Waite, I ain't missing you at all.
Right, but
Well,
I think we would be remiss if we didn't mention Kenneth Washington. How about Kenneth Washington, folks? No?
crushing below blow.
Kenneth Washington was a super cool character actor who appeared on the very last season of Hogan's Heroes. And I remember the character. He was Sergeant Richard Baker. And because I love that show, it's one of my favorite shows of all time.
You remember his rank? Good
Sergeant,
God.
Sergeant. Oh,
Okay.
yeah. Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. They had all kinds of different ranks there in the military back then, sure. And I remember all of them. So why do I remember him? Because there was a couple episodes that stick out, and then also I happen to know that he is the last surviving cast member from Hogan's Heroes. So that is it. We can now put to rest the entire cast of Hogan's Heroes for whatever that's worth. And again,
Wow.
Kenneth Washington also seemed like just such a cool dude. He was on dozens of shows. I mean, you would see that guy pop in left and right everywhere. If anyone looks him up, you're going to go, oh, that guy, right? So I did want to mention
Mhm.
him, but Chris, I would also be remiss if I didn't bring up Rick Hurst, good old Rick Hurst.
Mhm. Cletus from Dukes of Hazzard. I'm not gonna first of
Cletus,
all,
you guys,
okay,
Cletus.
I don't wanna accuse you of pole farming, okay, what was it, Richard Washington? I forget what did you just say his name was?
Geez, we've already forgotten him.
Okay.
I am so sad. Here I am trying to raise Kenneth Washington awareness.
Kenneth Washington. I'm sorry, Kenneth.
That's
Um,
okay. I called Theo Cleo, so you're all
that's
right. You're in
true.
good company.
That's true. Um, no, I mean, yeah, Cletus, I guess, yes. I mean, yes. I think I think the territory we want to get into is, every year, like the Academy Awards or the Emmy Awards or even all the award shows, they have that little in memoriam section where they
Of
play like
course.
a sad song and then
Yeah.
they show stills of the people in the industry that died that year. And then invariably 10 seconds, thanks to social media, 20 seconds after it airs, people it's blowing up. Hey, they forgot Richard Washington. And it's like, I'm sorry, Kenneth Washington.
I
I'm
just wish
sorry,
one
Kenneth.
time somebody
I'm
would
s-
would hijack that section of the Academy Awards and just
uh-huh.
play a song that is completely the opposite of that vibe. It would just be so awesome.
Like
Yeah.
walking on sunshine or something like
Walking on Sunshine, Chris.
little
I was just
Katrina and the
thinking of that
waves.
one. Katrina and the Waves.
I'm
Exactly.
walking on sunshine.
Don't
And
worry.
don't it feel good?
Be happy. A little bit of that. Maybe just the theme to Ghostbusters.
Uh-huh.
You know,
I can see
which
clearly
that would
now.
right.
Oh,
I can
yeah.
see
Yeah.
clearly now. Well, that actually
Yeah.
might fit. I think I can see clearly now is a little bit
Okay.
melancholy. Or how about
Okay.
dun 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 dun? Goodbye, Michelle. It's hard to
Oh, just okay,
die.
don't get Terry Jackson into this
That
one
would be
again,
that would be
okay?
really good. That would be like
When
a
all the
double. You would actually have people leaving so they could commit suicide if that
right,
were to
when
play
all the birds are
during
singing
the
in the sky.
during the in memoriam. That's right.
Absolutely. Okay.
Or just the theme song to MASH, suicide is painless. I don't know where I
Mm,
got on this roll,
brings
but
on many
Chris,
changes.
it
Yeah.
brings on many changes. So and then speaking of which, let's go a little further on celebrities that we probably remember a little better, right? That maybe
Mhm.
had bigger roles. Oh, by the way, real quick, sorry for the side trip here, but Cletus wasn't a super popular character, but Enos, by the way, and they got to be
Mhm.
very careful here because one's Cletus and one's Enos. But the
Mm.
Enos character on Dukes of Hazzard did go off and have his own spin-off show. That's how
Sonny
popular he
Schroyer, I
was.
think that guy, yeah, and
Well done.
it was called Enos. I mean, it was just like, and I know, like, we were all running around whenever in junior high playing off of Enos, making
Yeah.
jokes,
Yeah.
whatever. "Hey, did you watch Penis last night?" I mean, we were doing that.
Anus, right? Yeah. I already thought of 7 jokes you could do for that. Yeah, absolutely. I love that character actor. I think he's still alive. But Chris, speaking of MASH, we also lost Major Hot Lips Houlihan, Loretta Swit.
Mhm,
And that was also an interesting role, right? Because she
mhm,
had to kind of show depth and humanity, but she also had the side of her where she was supposed to be the villain a little bit,
mhm.
almost like in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, right? She would have been
Yes, kind of a Nurse
Nurse
Ratchet.
Ratchet,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And of course, just her relationship with Frank Burns makes her, you know, somewhat unlikable in terms of the
Right.
actual character. Yet, as the
Mhm,
show continued, I was
mhm.
glad that they were able to evolve her character and she had a lot of humanity and she came around and became actually friends with
Right, right.
Alan Alda's character and Hawkeye and
Sure.
all those guys. So anyway, such a cool person. Again, sad to see her go.
Mhm.
Also, Chris, we might have mentioned this or not mentioned this. Maybe we did, but when I think of this person, I think of the not far out space nuts. That was Bob
That was
Denver.
and Chuck
I think
McCann,
of the
yeah.
lost saucer. Let's not forget our friend Ruth Buzzy
Oh, Ruth Buzzy.
from our Saturday morning childhood who passed
Mhm,
away and part of the Laugh-In crowd. By the way, Chris,
mhm,
watch an episode of Laugh-In right now. Go on to
mhm,
whatever Tubi or whatever you got to go to.
mhm,
It is horrific.
mhm.
There is, back then, you thought it was the funniest. I did. The greatest thing. Everybody was caught up in Laugh-In mania. It was the most horribly produced. piece of shit show. But the one thing I will say about it, everyone was clearly stoned, drunk, or on something. They just threw
Right.
together like, okay, you pop out of the cardboard and say some shit. It doesn't matter if it's
Mhm.
funny. Everyone's gonna laugh, and then I'll
Right.
drink and say some fucking shit, and
Right.
that's a wrap. Anyway,
Right.
sorry, I got off on a weird tangent
Yeah,
there, but
Rowan and Martin, like a sort of a TV version of
I love the vibe, but it's a
Martin and
bad
Lewis.
show. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and all those yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, it was those things don't hold, you're right, they don't hold up, and you try to even just an exploratory sort of, trip down what you find on streaming, and it's horrifying. But yeah.
But Ruth Buzzy's a good example of a person who, when I was a kid, she was too old for a kid my age to think she was cool, but I did, right?
Mhm.
I laughed at her stuff, and it's like, I'm too little to care about this old lady, and she wasn't old. It's just to me as a kid, she was an old
Right,
lady.
she's
Same
39.
thing with like Joanne Worley or Phyllis Diller or any of
Right.
these people. You're like, later on, you look back and go, why is a kid my age laughing at this old person that I shouldn't even be able to relate to? And again, it's because that's all that's on TV. Laugh or just don't laugh, that's it. But she was amazing character actress, yeah.
Well, and we had talked about this previously, and again, they all fell in that category of their age, their demographic, not. And I don't wanna get, because 'cause I'm sure they can, 'cause they were playing characters a lot, like, not conventionally attractive to the
Yeah,
point, like, remember when we
yeah.
talked about the Ernest Borgnines of the world, and the Walter Matthau's, and the whoever else that was, at that time, Eddie Albert, where now these people wouldn't be stars, because they wouldn't even get the supporting roles, because
Right.
you have to look a certain way, and even the again, the periphery characters, unless that's part of the character, right? Unless it's like, oh, that's part of their role. They're unattractive and mean, and that's part of. But you're right. Someone like uh, Joanne Worley, or Ruth Buzzy, or Phyllis Diller, or any of these people that you mentioned getting a job now, um, and at their age and how they look, not happening. Of course, you could say that in a lot of industries besides Hollywood, I
Well,
think.
and they were so, I guess, typecast, right? So
Hmm.
Carol Burnett, one of the comedy geniuses in
Right.
terms of improv and sketch comedy of all time, I can call that skit comedy because it's not a Lauren Michaels production, but she would openly mention multiple times, being very self-deprecating, I'm not the most
Mhm,
glamorous and all that. And that's not true. She was a very attractive person. And I'm not just saying that. I
mhm,
thought she was, but or is, sorry. But yeah, I mean, back then in Hollywood, again, you just said it, right? It's like, oh, it's the not so glamorous lady. She must be the funny one, right? So the Rosemary Clooney, we talked about her, but again, same thing, right? Oh, she's not the most attractive. She's the funny one, you know?
mhm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely,
Interesting side. Yeah.
yeah, and even Phyllis Diller in her bit, she had she made references to her husband, who she
Fang.
Fang, exactly. So even there, you get a visual going, okay, Phyllis Diller's not married to the most, handsomest guy on the block. Her husband's name is Fang, and you get this visual of some weird cartoonish villain looking, or just super, Wally Cox kind of character in this out like that. So
Wally
yeah.
Cox. Jeez.
So
Well, Phyllis
Wally
Diller's
Cox
whole
probably,
shtick was I'm ugly. That was her entire comedy bit was I'm hideous or I'm a crazy looking person. That was the whole shtick. Yeah.
I can remember again in your teens, I don't know about you, but specific times where death was kind of shocking, right? And people, uh, the whole part of it was essentially, did you hear who died? I remember very specifically, there used to be this whole thing about, and this is we're not that old, but they would say, like, where were you when Kennedy was shot, right? People would say, oh my God, I was taking my kids to school, or I was baking an apple pie, and they had this memory, I can remember, but for me, I can think of a couple instances, and maybe you have one or two that jumped out again when we were kids. Specifically, I remember very specifically when Elvis died, and it was just like, and I want to say it was during the summertime, and it came out on people heard Elvis Presley died. And for us, Elvis was already a caricature, right? Elvis, we don't remember, swinging Elvis, Viva Las Vegas Elvis. We saw this fat, slovenly. Well, of course, he died when you find out eventually he was hooked on painkillers and he weighed 300 pounds and all this kind of stuff. He died? Wow, big surprise there, right? But still, it was like, wow, Elvis Presley died. And then but I remember specifically when John Lennon died, right? Because they literally most people I was watching Monday Night Football with, like, my dad and my brother, and it was, like and Howard Cosell, of all people, during the game, during a timeout, talks about news out of New York, blah, 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 starts talking about John and it was just like, "Did he just say John Lennon died?"
Yeah.
And, of course, again, we were sort of John Lennon was for us okay, the Beatles broke up in 1970, so we still knew John Lennon as this old Beatle, but I can remember that hitting and people reacting and candlelight vigils and all that kinda stuff, and to me, that was just like, I was pretty fortunate. I didn't go to a funeral till I was 21 years old. I had 3 out of 4 grandparents, to a fairly early to an adult age. Um but do you remember anything like that where it was like an instance, a famous person, and the reactions? It's like, "Oh my god, did you hear?" Because again, there were a lot of them when we were like junior high school, whether it was John Lennon or whether it was Bon Scott or someone like that. Do you remember anything jumping out at you as far as, "Oh my god, they died," and the reaction that followed?
Yeah. Well, the John Lennon one was really interesting because I was downstairs watching TV randomly and they announced it on the news. I walked upstairs and my mom was in the kitchen and my cousin was there. And I said, "Hey guys, John Lennon just died." And the reaction was actually kind of funny because neither one of them believed it for a second. They both just assumed I had heard that wrong. And I remember my cousin saying, "Oh, Jeff, you're not talking about John Lennon. It's somebody else. Yeah. John Lennon's not dead." And it was just this shrug. And they just continued to do what they were doing in the kitchen. And I just kind of shrugged and walked away. I mean, it did hit me. I felt bad. But not having listened to a ton of Beatles music by then and not really understanding too much about him, it didn't hit me the same way. Later, really sad,
Mhm,
especially the way that he died, which is horrific. So,
mhm,
that was interesting, yeah, but I think yeah, I mean, there have been, actors or celebrities that have died throughout the years that hit me in kind of a weird, unexpected way where I was, like, super sad, and I do believe we mentioned this on a previous episode, but flashing forward, I think this show might have been the late '80s. No, we just talked about this a while ago. I think it was, like, a few
mhm,
episodes ago. There was this random, actor, John Eric Hexum. We talked about him, right?
mhm.
He,
He's playing with
he
a
was only
prop
an
gun.
actor very, very briefly. I didn't know the guy. Every show he was on, he was a really likable guy, but it was because
Mhm,
he accidentally killed himself messing around with a prop gun.
mhm,
Somehow, maybe it was the where I was in my life, it just bugged me, and it really affected me, and I kept saying, "Jeff, you don't know John Eric Hex." I'm like, Why is this affecting you so much?" So I don't know why, Chris. Maybe there's just random shit going on, but
mhm.
that was a real bummer to me. I think because he had so much going for him, he had a lot ahead of him, and it was just sort of a dumb thing to do, and maybe I'm the king of dumb things to do. As I sit here right now with a destroyed lower back, because as you know,
Uh-huh.
Chris, 2 weeks ago, I was off the coast of Catalina Island, and I decided to jump off the boat, climb up a 25-foot cliff, and show everybody that I'm not 59 years old. And I jumped off that cliff, and I hit the water just the way a 59-year-old would, poorly. Chris, poorly would be an understatement. And now I'm sitting here, wincing.
Let's talk about that for a second. How? Because again, yes, obviously I known about this since it happened, but how did you hit the water? You didn't clarify. Were you, like, kicking and were you, like, flailing your arms and kicking and screaming? Did you try to go in did you try to go in like, shoot with your arm, like, all, like, bullet shaped, like, straight down?
Yeah,
Did
yeah,
you splat, like, belly I mean,
yeah,
25 feet is
yeah.
way too high.
Way
Okay,
too high, yeah.
25 feet is and
Where were you?
especially because,
Where
you
were you,
know
by the way, when I was doing this? I wish you would have been there.
yes, I was that other that, did you have the voices on your okay, let me ask you this, let's take a step back. As you were was there any thought did it come into your as you were ascending to getting to this point where you were gonna jump off, or even as you got ready to jump off,
Yeah,
did you have that little voice saying, "Think about this for a second.
yeah,
It's like, "No, there's no turning back," or "Should I be doing this?" or what
no,
the hell could happen? I've done this before." It's as long as did anything, or it's just like, "Screw it," or you knew it and you but, like, I have to do take me through your
yeah.
process here, because. 'cause,
Yeah.
I think it's an excellent way to sort of wrap up the
So
topics we're
so
talking
here's
about.
so here's so here's the process. I'm with a bunch of guys that I work with. The guy that I jumped in the water with is at least 20 years younger than me, very
Mhm,
athletic, and that was my first problem, is
mhm.
I'm with someone who can do this and I can't. Number 2, I used to, uh, 25, maybe 30 years ago, I used to love to go to Lake Powell in Utah, and one of the things we would
Mhm.
do in the houseboat is we would find cliffs and we would jump off
Houseboat.
the cliffs, right? And it was fun. It's a cool little vacation. You're just
Sure.
drinking beer in your houseboat and you would jump off these cliffs. And so jumping off cliffs was no big deal. What I did wrong, and the only time the little angel on my shoulder appeared to say, "Jeff, maybe this isn't a good idea," right? Like an Animal House, right? Tom Holtz's little angel there.
Mhm. For
Um,
shame!
for shame. We won't get into what the devil said.
No,
So
no.
is climbing the cliff was a little bit gnarly. It was not like, "Hi, tourist, here's a nice little path." No, this was like you're kinda scaling it, and there was a couple points where there's a point of no return. That's the only time when I thought, "Hey, dumb shit, maybe this part of the adventure is telling you something, like, this isn't a good idea." But we get to the top and my buddy jumps and he jumps feet first. He's not a professional diver, but he jumps like a normal person would, where he points his toes and he keeps his legs solid and he gets in the water. Me, I jump, but instead, I'm a dum dum. I have these wet shoes on, right? Which are like sneakers, but they can get wet. And that was my first problem. The second problem was right before
Oh,
I hit
jeez.
Chris, my legs
Uh,
bent a little bit. I bent my knees and I hit the surface of the water with the flats of my feet. And I was wearing these sneakers. So I think the combination of that just sort of compressed like a shock absorber my knees and just sort of shoved them right up into my back when I hit the surface of the water. And as I hit the water, I'm like, "Yep, that was bad." And I'm just kind of floating on my back and like, "Hey, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm fine." And for the rest of the boating trip, I'm just like, "Oh my God. There's going to be hell to pay for the next month and a half." And sure enough, I just got the x-ray, Chris, and I did not break my back. But I do have, like everybody my age, a compressed disc
oh, Jesus
and
Christ.
weird shit, and it's like one of those things where I'll be fine. But what a dum dum.
Alright,
Why?
so, okay,
Why do
so
I
I guess,
face
yeah,
death in that
I
way,
had
Chris? Yeah.
I had never asked that, like, they didn't have to throw you a life preserver or anything, that's good.
No,
Um,
no.
and what is what this again, this is the first part, okay, so then you're in pain, and as soon as you hit the water, this is a bad idea.
Yeah.
Um, Now, again, going back into different episodes, we can have established that the litany of bad ideas that that you've
Oh man, if we could just do a montage right now, that would be amazing.
right.
Almost lighting a gas station on fire by accident, driving up to the edge of a
Off a
cliff and almost driving off
right,
of it. Many
right,
things. There's no reason why I
we're
should be here today. You're right, Chris.
we're right there, right there. We yeah, the montage, we could play
Yeah.
"Time of Your Life" over it,
Yeah.
and
Right.
as description. So there's 2 aspects of it, to me, there's the physical pain, right? And which comes along with, like, the decision making, like, yeah, not a great idea. But
No.
then and obviously the aftermath, as it's been a couple weeks and you're still dealing with it.
Ouch.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then how do you see, for me, it's just like it's almost like the situation when they're like, "Oh, man, what am I gonna tell my dad about this?" It's like, how do you explain it's like, how do you tell your what's your wife say in this kind of thing? What do you get? What is the reaction with, like, the we talked about this, when you would ask, "What were you thinking?" "Why, Jeff?"
Trying to get your head around what it must have been like the last 30 years living with me at all would answer that question. But I really, so many of us say the same thing. Chris, you say the same thing. You've been married a long time. You have a wonderful wife. And we've said this, both of us have said this many times. We're just really lucky that we found the right person and they truly love us. But this was the reaction. What do you mean? Oh, I destroyed my back. What did you do? Oh, I was jumping off a cliff with TJ and hit the water wrong. Okay. So how much pain are you in? And she just went right into kind of like nurse mode or just
Wow.
doctor mode. And from then on out, it was, what are we going to do next to just make sure you're okay? And then it was a lot of just normal things like you do need to get an x-ray, make sure you do
Mhm.
that, so she was not phased at all.
Awesome.
And by the way, the fact that she wasn't phased probably speaks volumes. And maybe it was an intervention to me, like, Jeff, why isn't she phased? Maybe I need to do some self-evaluation on dumb decisions, right? It was the world's smallest intervention, but it did
Uh,
take place in my head.
some self-reflection.
Yeah,
Um, it all boils down to it seemed like a good idea at the time, right?
yeah.
And then and I think maybe it underscores the fact that all the things we've talked about on this show, all of our experiences, firsthand or secondhand, or the things that we've watched, or the things that we've learned, or the things that we've, been a part of, however large or small, is that we never learn. We can never there's a part of us that we just don't learn, and maybe that makes us unique, maybe that makes us human, or maybe that just makes us a couple of middle-aged guys who still think that we're not middle-aged guys, or that, yeah, what could happen? What could go wrong? And, yeah, I think that never ever goes away.
Maybe that's why I'm so excited about episode 70. It means that we made it that far. But I can see, Chris, before episode 100, I'm not trying to be dark or sardonic or
Okay.
weird here, but I could see you going, well, it's just me, Chris, on episode 98. It finally happened. That dumb shit did it. So, yeah, everyone told him not to, and he did that stupid thing anyway. So here I am. So if you
We just
like the kind of stuff we go over, we are looking for a new co host. Let me
just
know at nicepolpod.com.
Uh, right now, I am co-hosting with an empty chair, and we'd like to fill that chair.
Yeah.
Although I don't know, but you did but this show couldn't go. Maybe that's another point. It's like, Jeff, you need to stop because you do way too much on the production side that people do
Oh,
not
yeah.
see. That this show would look and sound a lot different. So let's the next time you get on a cliff, um, drive drive to the edge of a cliff, think about setting something on fire. If you don't think about your wife, if you don't think about your sons, if you don't think about everything else in your life, think about nice pull.
I will. I really
Think
will.
about
And
nice
and
pull.
and now that you've said it, so many dumb decisions have started with me being at a height that I should not have been at. On the edge of
That's
a
right.
cliff, jumping off a cliff, on the top of a house. It
There
always
you go.
starts with me looking down and going, "Sure, why not?" There you
Stay,
go. I don't
stay
know,
at
man.
stay at sea level, Jeff. My advice to you is just stay at sea level, and everything will be fine. So yeah, so I don't even again, sometimes hey, the way that the direction the show takes, and we started talking about death and famous people dying and people dying when we were kids, and we ended by, Jeff, you're seem to be cheating death. Or if it not cheating death, time and time again, it didn't matter if you were 16 or 18 or even this age that you currently are now. It's just like, how can I push the envelope? How can I, let's not get you in one of those in memoriam sections. Okay. Let's just kind of keep it going where we
All
are.
right.
And I think it's a great place to stop. And for Jeff, for you, specifically, a great place to stop at the edge of that rock. Let's just go 10 feet. Okay, go 12. And then, that you still get the exhilaration, you still get the feeling, but you don't get the pain and you don't get the aftermath. So I think until then, a great place to stop right here, right now. Until next time, Jeff.
Until next time, Chris, hopefully.